Okay. Um, all right, well, first of all, I apologize for doing this in the middle of the night. Those of you who like to watch live. But to be fair, I was planning on pre-recording this. I was gonna make this video and then upload it at another time, but I just decided to save myself the effort of uploading it at a later time and just do it now. Takes all the pressure off because then I don't have to worry about it being perfect or anything. So, oh, hello. Um, wasn't honestly expecting anybody to join. I just remembered you called me earlier. I was busy when you did that though. I was uploading a different video. Um, okay. Think I'm good camera-wise. All right. Oh, well, good morning or middle of the night or whatever it is. I hope you're enjoying yourself. Um, so what I was originally going to do was I was going to film this video and then post it afterward. And my plan was to talk about sort of breaking down my philosophy. And I'm still going to do that, but I don't think I'm going to put as much pressure on myself to do it in as organized of a way. It's just sort of to get my thoughts um, together and hopefully, something coherent will come out. So I had a conversation a couple weeks ago with the Meta AI, the Instagram AI model, and I don't know why. I don't know how I even got on this topic, but I started talking about some philosophical concepts, and it got really deep and it got really out of hand, and I was so into it that it kept me up really late. This might not have been a full week ago. I think this was like maybe 5, 6 days ago. No, it was more than that. Um, it was days before the election, so I'm not exactly sure when, but I I just wanted to make a video of those thoughts because even though I've talked about philosophy and my philosophy and stuff on this channel before and on my other channel, I feel like I can always use an update. You know, you come up with a better, more organized way to say the same thing, and then new people understand it, or even the same people understand it in a new way, just as I do. Um, so one of the things that stood out the most about this was that I felt like I was sort of using the process of elimination to narrow down possibilities and say, well, it couldn't be this. There's no way. It's definitely, we can rule that out. And we narrow it down to the point where we're like, okay, so we've narrowed it down to this has to be true. And even though I haven't narrowed it down to there's only one possibility, I was able to knock off a lot of popular theories that people still buy into. And I found that really interesting. So I'm trying to remember how it started because I didn't just walk into the conversation expecting to talk about that. I think I was talking about probably something political. Um, but I don't feel like scrolling up and looking for it, so I'm just gonna try to use my memory. Um, basically, if I were to start it with something political, I would probably start with the concept of morality. So let's just start with the election, right? Clearly, there are some very different opinions on morality regarding the election because we have two polar opposite candidates. And even that's controversial to say. I've had people say that the two of them are similar. You know, I've had people say that they're just two sides of the same coin and that it really wouldn't have mattered who won. Everything's going to be messed up anyway. Um, and I will grant you, I cried after the election. Yeah, everybody was having a horrible reaction to it, and I really don't understand people who had no reaction to it. There are people who didn't vote. There are people who voted third party. There are people who didn't even know. And this is really shocking, but I'm not even joking. I have firsthand examples of this. There are people who did not even know that it was election day on November 5th. Okay? I know about a guy whose fiance, she voted for him. Or not voted for him. She threw out his ballot and he didn't even know. And she knew that he wouldn't do anything about it because she knew he didn't know when election day was. They had like mail-in ballots. So like, you know, I don't understand how this can happen. I have a lot of friends who are like, "Oh, I don't do politics. I stay out of politics." And then I hear about a situation like the one I just mentioned where somebody didn't even know that it was election day to the point where his wife or fiance could throw out his ballot and he wouldn't even notice or care. Because he wasn't going to vote for Harris. So it's insane to me that can even happen. I can't wrap my head around it. I wish Trump luck with his second term, and I hope he doesn't fuck the country up. If I'm being totally honest, I have this sense that it's not over yet. I don't know why, but it feels like it's not over. And I felt like that since Wednesday. Like during the election, every part of it, it felt like it's not over. This is like the results are in, but they're not at the same time. There's something off about this, and it's not sitting well with a lot of people. So it's not just me. I think that there was fraud. I think he cheated. I also heard a lot of examples of people saying that they had issues with voting that they had never experienced in their life. There was a woman who said that she lived in the same place for 20 years, and yet this year they told her that they didn't have her address all of a sudden. And people who were trying to in every way imaginable be deterred from going to the voting booths. There was some weird shit going on, and it was only Democrats experiencing this. So I would not be surprised if there was fraud. He had billionaires involved. He had a lot of people who could get shit done in really scummy ways. So I hope that I hope he gets caught because he was trying to prevent people from voting from her. I think it wouldn't surprise me either if he was preventing votes from being counted, um, or getting votes removed somehow, making sure they never made it to wherever they're counted. There's a lot of ways where he could have intercepted, and what's funny is that he accused everybody of doing that in 2020, but he literally received less votes than he did in 2020. In 2020, he got more votes than he did this year. Like, let that sink in. He literally couldn't even outdo his loss in 2020. The only reason he lost is because there were an insane number of votes missing from Harris's side. That's weird. That's really weird. It's also insanely weird that he won the popular vote by a lot, by like 4 million votes. That's obnoxious. And it really it doesn't make any sense. Every prediction person, everybody who studies politics and can make educated guesses, every expert, everybody was predicting a Harris win. Even the guy who predicted Trump's initial win in 2016, everyone was thinking she was going to win. There are formulas, there's ways of figuring stuff like this out, and there's ways to look at polls and stuff. She was ahead in the polls. Everyone was talking about this election, like even more so than in 2020. So it's crazy to me that less people voted. It doesn't sit well, it doesn't make sense. It just feels like something's off. This result feels like I'm trying to think of a good example, just like a wild card. It's like, you're moving in one direction and then out of nowhere you're like and you're like, how the hell did I get here? There was a glitch. I was about to step into the door and then all of a sudden I just glitched and I'm about to step over a cliff. This was not in front of me a second ago. What just happened? Um it's this really weird situation. There's no other way to describe it. But nevertheless, it did happen, and a lot of people got sick over it, and those are the people I understand. I completely understand people who were having suicidal thought. I mean, there's people sharing crisis hotlines and stuff like that. Meanwhile, the other side is celebrating and thinking that they won, treating it like a football game. It's really ridiculous. Um, I mean, I know you said you wish Trump luck on his second term. I don't wish him anything but horrible things. I really hope he gets karma. I hope that he finally experiences all the things he's made other people experience. Every death, every suffering, every horrible thing he's resulted in other people experiencing, I hope he experiences it 10 times over. And I hope it kills him because he deserves to die. He's a horrible, horrible person. And he's gotten by all these years by hurting other people, stepping on other people, and facing no consequences. What he did in this election, that's going to be the last straw. I think karma is coming for him, and I think it's coming soon. I would keep an eye out in the news in the next couple weeks. I think something's gonna happen. I'm willing to bet on it. I don't know what's gonna happen, but he's gonna get what he deserves. I don't wish death on anyone. Yeah, I know everybody loves to say that, but I don't care. I say what I actually think and I say what I actually mean, and I'm not afraid of my own thoughts. I'm not afraid of my emotions. That's what I think a lot of people do is they try to say that because it sounds wrong. It's like, "Oh, I don't wish death on anyone." I've heard a lot of people say that. But the truth is, it's okay to sometimes hate someone enough to wish death on them. It's not okay to actually go out and murder someone, but there's a difference between murdering someone and wanting someone to not be alive anymore, especially when it's rooted in self-defense, when it's rooted in fear of what that person could do to you. I think it's totally valid. Um, but just in general, I think that what I wish is for people to get what they deserve, for people to get what they ask for, and for people to actually have consequences for their behavior. And for some people, they're gonna die. There are some people who are just they're they're the only way to actually give them justice is for them to die. Now, I don't. This is what's confusing about this is I don't believe in capital punishment. I don't believe that people should be murdered by the government for what they did. I think you really should leave that up to karma. However, I think that it's okay to kill someone when they are an active threat, like, self-defense. But on a larger scale, like if you had an evil dictator who was trying to kill people, would you even feel safe if he was behind bars, or would you be afraid that he could still get work done from behind bars? There may be a point where you really only feel safe when their heart's not beating anymore, and that's still a form of self-defense. That's not about punishment. Um, when it comes to punishment, genuinely leave it up to karma. Don't get involved in what these people have going on. But definitely get a front row seat because it's going to be satisfying to watch when people get what they finally have been asking for all these years. I think a lot of Trump supporters, if Trump actually does, become the president for the next 4 years, they're going to get their karma. The rest of us are going to be collateral damage, but they're finally going to realize what they've been asking for. He doesn't give a shit about anybody but himself. And all he does is lie. I hate him, but I have respect for the office of the president. I don't even have that. It's all just bullshit. None of this even existed 400 years ago. Like, we just made all this shit up. All these technicalities of what makes something right or wrong or good or bad. We made it up, and we did it by stealing land from other people and murdering them and bringing them disease and raping them. And then we built this system on them and acted like we had moral principles when at the time we owned slaves. Go figure that one out. But yeah, the whole thing is messed up. And I need to sleep, so good night. Okay, good night. I mean, I wasn't really expecting anybody to be here right now anyway, but yeah, the truth is none of this was supposed to look like this anyway. And I really don't know how much time we have left, for this country in the first place, because the country itself comes with a lot of karmic debt. And it's so deep that we may never really be able to fully make up for everything that we've done. So I think the best solution is to just try to rebuild from the beginning. Try to alchemize it, um, embrace that it is going to be about paying debt and work around it. Don't just try to fight it and resist. You can leave the country. You can stay and you can try to fight for justice and try to right the wrongs, but you don't want to just sit by and be like, well, let's just leave things how they are and respect the systems that are in place. The systems that are in place need to be rethought and redesigned. Not entirely, but for the most part, yeah. There's a lot of corruption. There's too much room for corruption. Um, and if I'm not mistaken, even the first president, George Washington, didn't want us to be divided into a two-party political system, but that happened anyway. Um, so yeah, there are a lot of things that happened that did not need to happen. And I think we forget sometimes that a lot of the things that we worship and respect as just the way things are or the way God intended things to be, they're shit that people literally just made up. They're systems. And what happens in life, in real life, when you design something? Think about the first iPhone, right? We have had to make a lot of changes to the way phones work. Other companies have made phones to be better, like, how the iPhone was innovative. The iPhone itself has the iPhone 16 now. There's all sorts of changes. We've made a lot of changes and a lot of improvements, and some even fundamental changes. We've even like gone to the basics and rebuilt a lot of this stuff. Sometimes in life that is necessary. When you start holding on to old things just for old sake, you're gonna end up regretting it. So you got to use your head, and that's what this live stream is about. Um, the purpose of this live stream is to break down morality and its connection to logic, and not just do things because it's the way it's done or it's what you hear. So and I started by talking about the election because I think that the fact that so many people have such vastly different opinions on this really says a lot about how important it is that we have these discussions. So first of all, let's talk about it. Let's talk about what makes something right or wrong, the difference between right or wrong. I think the difference between right and wrong comes down to how it affects other people. So, how do we break that down logically? Well, the universe, there's no such thing as somewhere else, right? Like we understand that, as it is, um, all we know is life, is existence, is the universe. So it's obvious that we're all part of the same thing. No one could really make the logical argument that we're part of something different. So why is it so easy for us to turn on each other, to see each other as the enemy? Imagine if your right arm and your left arm, or left arm and right arm, started fighting with each other and attacking each other. What would happen? Eventually you'd lose your arms. What would happen if the left side of your body and the right side of your body started attacking one another? You would die. If the universe turned in on itself, what would happen? The truth is, we are all part of the same universe. We're cut from the same cloth, part of the fabric of existence, and it makes no logical sense for us to harm one another. It makes complete sense for everybody to treat each other like we're all connected, like we're the same, like what I do to someone else is being done to me. If people operated with that mentality, we would actually be able to live in harmony. If people do not operate with that mentality, we would be in a constant state of attacking ourselves, and no one would be comfortable, no one would be happy. So, what are some other interesting philosophical concepts that I thought of that night? I would say one of the most interesting ones is probably the creation of existence itself. And I narrowed down two things. So, if we can establish that there's no such thing as nothing, then doesn't that eliminate the possibility of the universe eventually ending? So what I can really only take down one argument at a time. So I prefer to have these types of discussions in the context, excuse me, in the context of proving a point. To just make a big, long, generic video, it's a little bit of an ambitious thing that I don't know if I'm capable of, or that it's even worth it. But the truth is, I was aware of that before I started the live stream, which is why instead of calling it my complete philosophical ideas or whatever, I called it late night philosophy, because that's what it is. This is just late night shit. Um, this isn't really going to be that deep, you know. But if you gave me an argument and you said, for example, um, I believe in the Christian Bible, and I believe that when you die, you're either going to go to heaven for eternity or you're going to go to hell for eternity. I could refute that. I could take that statement and I could say, okay, here's why that's not true. Here's why I know that that cannot be the case. So if you brought me a different religion and you said something, you know, I can only refute one argument at a time. But the universe is too infinite for me to try and contain it in a single philosophical video. I can only take one idea at a time and share my opinion on it. But that's I guess I'm just gonna have to do that over the course of this channel. Um, take on these arguments, and that's what's gonna catch people's attention too. You know, debunking a specific religion or a specific argument, a specific political stance. So I'll just share a couple of the more popular ones, the ones that seem relevant in this video, and we'll just go from there. Let's start with debunking the concept of hell. So, in order to prove that it's not logical to suggest that when I die, I'm either going to go to heaven for eternity or hell for eternity, we have to first look at the concept of eternity. So, what does the concept of eternity suggest? Well, eternity suggests that it will never end, that you will just be in heaven forever, and that's that. But then what? Doesn't that sound a little bit boring, almost like an end? Think of another concept that that specific religion brings up, the concept of a divine plan, the concept of a greater purpose. It's more than just getting people into heaven or sending people to hell. There is a deeper meaning here. Does anyone know what it is? Can anyone tell me what God's divine plan is? I don't think so. I don't think anybody knows what it is. When there's a great event, some wonderful thing that something we perceive as wonderful, your favorite team wins the football game, or, you know, a relative recovers from a disease, or, you know, something like that. You win a contest, I don't know, you win some money. You say, oh, thank God, praise God, God is good, God is taking care of us. But what happens, what about the other team? Your team won, but what about the other team? What do they say? Oh, well, must be part of God's divine plan, right? Oh, your mom died, she didn't overcome her cancer. It's God's divine plan. That's what they like to say. So God is causing all of these horrible things to happen because it's his divine plan, right? Well, if his divine plan entails causing horrible things to happen sometimes, it must be pretty complex. It must be pretty hard to figure out what exactly he's trying to accomplish. Certainly, we could never figure it out, so why even bother trying? But the thing is, it doesn't really matter what his plan is, because even the concept of a plan, I will never say those words without thinking of Donald Trump now, but even the concept of a plan is easy enough to work with where I can prove a point. Let's just say he has a hypothetical divine plan. It's completely irrelevant what the plan is. Any plan, just because of what a plan is as a concept, would not make logical sense. Because let's say God creates the universe, everything that exists, all of this stuff. He creates it for a purpose. What happens when that purpose is fulfilled? What happens when he accomplishes his plan? Does the universe cease to exist? And if it does cease to exist, then where is there proof that it was ever there in the first place? If it doesn't cease to exist, then now what? Do we just sit around and do nothing because the plan's been achieved, so there's nothing else to do. That's it. Um, are we in free play mode forever, where we're just like, oh, we beat the game, now that we can just run around and treat it like a sandbox and just, okay, this is boring. What else is on? Nothing. That was it. That's the whole thing. It's done. The purpose of the universe has been fulfilled, but you're stuck in here for eternity anyway, with no real purpose for anything. You're just going to sit around and just exist for eternity. And yes, it will get boring. And God's going to abandon you because he doesn't give a shit anymore. He won. He got what he wanted out of it. So you're just going to have to sit here. Have fun with that, right? Or sit in heaven, or just burn for eternity in hell. It makes no sense. So whether the universe stays or goes, something still is amiss. So here's how I know that the universe not existing anymore isn't even a possibility. That's because the universe, or at least what I mean when I say the universe, is everything. It's everything that exists. Therefore, it's not possible to leave the universe, because if you travel the universe far and wide and you find the edge and you're like, oh, can I get out? Can I break through and get out of the universe? Well, then what? What are you going to do if you get out of the universe? Where are you going to go? Nowhere? There's no such thing. No matter where you go, you're still somewhere. Everywhere you go, there you are. So, you will exist everywhere you go. And, the same thing with time. There's no such thing as no time or no place. You're always here and you're always now, no matter what. So, if you were to say that eventually, if enough time passes, everything will become nothing, or if you travel far enough and you go through enough space, you'll reach nothing, I would say there's no such thing as nothing. Because even if it was just a white space, even if it was just the absence of some vibrations, it wouldn't be nothing. That would still count as something, because there's literally no such thing as nothing. So therefore, by default, everything exists. Everything. Anything you can possibly imagine. If you can think it exists somewhere in some dimension. Because the universe is infinite, which is a concept I think a lot of us have trouble wrapping our heads around, and wrapping our heads around all the implications of what that means. But it's true by default. There's no alternative. The alternative would be nothing, and that there's no such thing. So yeah, it's just it's completely illogical to think that God created the universe just for a single purpose, because God would have to be part of the universe by that logic. If God created all that exists, where the hell did God come from? That's a good question. Christians don't have an answer to that. I've asked Christians. They don't have an answer. They say God exists beyond space and time. Well, then what is God? Where is God? How is God? And they say, well, I don't have answers to those questions. And I say, welcome to an atheist philosopher's problem. Because all of the questions that atheist philosophers have about the universe, you have decided that God is the answer to those questions, when in reality, you've simply relocated those questions to God. Because I have all the same questions about God that you think are answered about the universe. How is the universe? What is the universe? Why is the universe? And you're like, well, the answer is God. And I'm like, okay, well, then let me just move those questions to God. How is God? What is God? Why is God? Where is God? But it makes even less sense, because now you're involving a person with a mind and intentions, which just seems even weirder somehow. It's very interesting, some of the conclusions that people draw, and they do it because of a book that they read. They do it because they think, well, a lot of other people believe this, so it must be true. Not the case. Not the case. There are a lot of religions all throughout the world. There are a lot of different denominations of even your religion if you're Christian. There's Islam, Judaism, Christianity, um, Hinduism, Buddhism. Those are like the main five, I think. There's a shitload though. It could keep going. There's so many religions, and everyone believes them for different reasons. But what a weird thing to do, to believe a religion when you could instead just continue to be a philosopher, to continue to explore different possibilities, to acknowledge how little you really know so that you can learn more. When you've decided that you already have the education of a fourth grader and you're still in kindergarten, that's going to be really frustrating for your teacher because you're convinced that you don't belong there and that you know more than you do. Um, you have to be realistic about what you know and what you don't know. So I try my best to take care of that problem and figure this stuff out. You ask me, how can I disprove your religion? Well, first of all, there are probably a lot of ways that I can point out logical improbabilities or impossibilities. Um, however, you know, my question is, what reason do I have to believe in it in the first place? You know, what is my motivation for presuming that this even needs to be disproven any more than a random movie that you found where you walk up to me and you're like, hey, is Cinderella true? Did this really happen? And I'd be like, well, we don't have any reason to think it did. So why even bother trying to disprove it? It's similar to that. So yeah, a lot of people try to act like religion is just a personal belief and like it doesn't matter. And if I met someone who, using Cinderella as an example, used that movie as the religion and based their entire life around it, what do I give a shit? If that's how they want to live their life, it doesn't bother me. But when that person starts going around telling me that I need to wear glass slippers everywhere I go, and I need to be sitting around wishing for Prince Charming to save me and a fairy godmother, um, then we have a problem. Because now you're judging me. Now you're telling me that the way I'm living is wrong. Every time you look at me, you're thinking, I can't believe you're not wearing a blue dress and waiting for a fairy godmother to fix you and go get a Prince Charming. What's wrong with you? And you might not say it, you might be smiling all friendly, but deep down, every time you look at me, you're thinking that. You're wondering what's wrong with me. You're not respecting that you might be wrong. You're that convinced that you're right. And that is delusional and it's dangerous and it's not the foundation for a healthy friendship because you can't be friends with someone who doesn't share your delusion. That's not a true friendship. That's just pretending that you don't think that they're gonna experience something horrible. And in terms of Christianity, to think that all of your non-Christian friends are going to hell, imagine looking at someone that you claim to see as a friend and telling them that you think they're going to spend the rest of eternity burning and being tortured in unimaginable anguish. I would not want to be friends with someone who thinks that that's what my fate is, because do they think I deserve it? The answer is yes. They do think I deserve it because that's the system that they put their faith into. That's how they think their God works. So they're looking at me, not just thinking, oh God, that poor person is going to burn for eternity. They think that person deserves to burn for eternity because that's what God decided, and God is the decider of what's right and wrong. So if God decides that that person isn't good enough for heaven, then they're going to hell. You literally think I'm a bad person who deserves to burn for eternity, and I'm supposed to feel safe around you? I'm supposed to feel like you respect my beliefs? You respect a difference of opinion? It goes so much deeper than a difference of opinion. And let's circle back to the true definition of morality is how we treat each other. That is not an okay way to treat someone. That is going to make someone feel like shit. And then you play the victim and you say, nobody wants to be friends with me. How come I'm losing friends over my beliefs? Really? Really? Now, religion is one issue, but voting for Donald Trump is a whole different situation here. And I'll use the election as an example. On election night, half the country was sharing suicide hotlines and crisis hotlines, and sending each other support, saying, "Are you okay?" And people were crying, people couldn't sleep, people couldn't eat, people were throwing up, people were literally offing themselves. And then the other half of the country was celebrating, cheering like they won a ball game. And to the people who were crying and suffering and killing themselves and sharing all these crisis hotlines and offering each other support, they looked at those people and they said, "Ha ha, you lost. Too bad, so sad." They said things like, "Your body, my choice," just to make them feel like shit, just to rub it in a little bit. And they don't feel any remorse. I'm sorry, but if I took that situation out of this known context and shared this information with aliens, they would think, wow, that is messed up. That is heartless. That is sick. That's inexcusable. You can't defend that kind of behavior. To look at a friend in crisis and laugh in their face, say that they're being ridiculous, they're crying over nothing. How far down the rabbit hole do you have to be to think that that's an okay thing to do? These people have been brainwashed. It's a cult. And what happens in a cult? People abandon their integrity. They abandon their own sense of truth. They, you know, and any I'm trying to think of the right word. Like that, that intelligence, I don't know. You know, when you can actually use discernment to learn between right and wrong, what's fact and fiction, and you just take someone else's word for everything. Religion is a cult. People take God's word for everything, even though they can't prove that it even is God's word. They believe it is, and they take his word for it. They don't question it. They don't read into it. And if you grill them hard enough and you get them to a point where they can't logically defend that position, they'll just say, well, even though it doesn't make logical sense, it's God's word, so he knows what he's talking about. I'm sorry, but even in your belief system, God is the creator of the universe, which includes logic. So if his beliefs on right and wrong don't align with logic, doesn't that not make any sense? Shouldn't his beliefs align with logic if they're really coming from him, the creator of all things? Shouldn't everything be logical if it's really along with God? I mean, I should think that most of the things he says are wrong make some amount of sense. But if he just randomly decides coconuts are evil, and you're like, no coconuts, everyone, what's the logic behind that? Can you explain beyond God's word why coconuts are evil? Probably not. And that's what makes it a cult. Because when Donald Trump walks onto stage and says immigrants are evil, everyone starts hating immigrants and trans people and abortions. Well, let me ask you this. Let's assume it's true. Let's assume that women who want abortions are evil, sadistic, heartless murderers, right? That's what they want you to believe, that they love murdering babies. That's their whole MO. That's what they love. That's what they're doing it for. They're standing there holding these protest signs, my body, my choice. And what they're really saying is, I should be allowed to murder babies. Why don't you want to give me that right? I'm selfish, I'm arrogant, I love getting pregnant and then murdering babies after I'm pregnant, and I'm working with the devil, I'm satanic. That's what they want you to believe is true about women who get abortions. But the truth is, if it were really that simple to just say, oh, well, abortion is wrong because because it's the same thing as murder. You're murdering somebody in both, in whether you're murdering an adult human being or a fetus inside the uterus, um, it's murder, and there's no difference between abortion and murder. I would say, well, how come if there's no difference, nobody is trying to protest in favor of murder? How come the only thing you ever hear people saying is my body, my choice? It almost seems like there are people who have a stake in it, like someone has something to lose. See, when the only alternative to murder is forcing someone to give birth, that feels wrong. I don't think it's right to tell someone that they have to be pregnant and they have to give birth when they don't want to do those things for whatever reason. It's their business. Maybe they're afraid they're going to die. Maybe they think that their body won't be able to handle it. Maybe they just simply don't want to. Maybe they got pregnant by accident. Maybe they were raped. Maybe, a million different things. It's none of your business. All you need to know is that she doesn't want to give birth and she doesn't want to be pregnant. And instead of saying, I hear you, I understand how traumatic that is, giving birth, being pregnant, these are life-changing and body-changing experiences that are irreversible. There's no going back. And I cannot in good conscience tell you that you have to do this. It's your choice. That's a completely logical philosophy because it doesn't piss anybody off. There isn't an entire group of people saying, hey, I feel violated by this, which is the whole problem with murder in the first place, is that you're violating somebody else. So, yeah, I think that forcing someone to give birth is a form of violation similar to murder or rape. Imagine how you feel when someone is holding you down and sexually violating you and you can't do anything about it. You feel horrible. You feel like you have no control over yourself, over what's going to happen in your future, over your body. You're just there at the mercy of someone who wants to control you, who feels entitled to you. And the people who are against abortion, they're doing something similar. And it's sick. It's really sick. They don't see it that way. So I'm going to call BS on their arguments. Let's take a look at what they say. They say it's always wrong to kill. Not true. I bet those same people are in favor of the death penalty. I'll bet those same people would slap a mosquito on their hand or get cancer treatment and kill their cancer cells. I'll bet those same people take medicine when they have a cold. I bet that they even are willing to eat chicken, and I bet they're not vegan. I bet they don't even mind if they accidentally step on an ant. I bet they see a spider in their room and they kill it. Or, there's an infestation in their house and they kill it. I bet these people are not consistent in their views about murder, ending life. I'm willing to call it out. And most importantly, if it's human life they're so concerned about, let me ask you this. In terms of the ways that humans' lives are being put in danger, in terms of the ways that humans' lives are in peril, is it really the top priority to go after women who want abortions when you could instead go after homeless, starving children here and abroad, regardless of where? There are a lot of starving kids in the world, a lot of people whose moms and dads can't take care of them, or they don't have moms and dads anymore. They're by themselves. They're in foster care. They're on the street. They're stealing food to survive. This is happening. And there's a lot of homeless adults too. And instead of looking at them and saying, wow, this is so tragic, I wish I could do something to help them, you look at a homeless person and you say, you brought this on yourself. You shouldn't have quit your job, or you shouldn't have done whatever you did to get fired, or why don't you go get a job? You don't look at them and have an ounce of sympathy. You just assume that they probably brought it on themselves, even though prices are insanely high and it is extremely hard. You can't afford to live without working 2 jobs, which is more than full-time, and that should be illegal. Full-time at minimum wage should afford a roof over your head and food on your plate, but it doesn't. So if you're working full-time minimum wage, you're probably not going to be able to afford to live much longer. You're going to be homeless. You're going to be out of food. And then you're going to be on the streets just fighting. And you're going to have lost a lot of faith, lost a lot of energy, will to go on. People aren't machines. Sometimes they run out of energy, they run out of fight, and they just sit there desperate that someone will care about them. And you don't. You look at them and you think that they deserve it. And then you turn around and you drive to an abortion clinic and you say, this is how I'm going to make the world a better place. I'm going to ruin some woman's day and make her feel really guilty and try to convince her not to do what she's probably going to do anyway. Or you go protest and get involved in the government, and you waste people's times at college campuses making people have arguments. and you feel proud of yourself. You think you're doing something good. You think you're stopping horrible things from happening. But I promise you, there are far worse things happening that should take priority in your mind. How can you ignore those things and prioritize this when it's at someone else's expense on top of it? It's none of your business. If you care so much about helping other people, there are so many other things you could be doing. Stopping abortions, even if that was a problem, should be way down on your list of priorities. But it isn't, because it's bullshit. These people don't actually give a shit about helping people. All they care about is being right, virtue signaling, and it's rooted in misogyny, even if they're women. There can be misogynistic women. There can be women who have been programmed by the patriarchy. They're everywhere. And they don't care about other women. They don't even care about themselves. They're perfectly okay accepting their role as a caretaker of men, as someone who's going to work 5 times as hard and not even get half as much. And I'm not even just talking about pay. I'm talking about everything in general. Women put so much more into everything that they do than men. Men can just walk into a room and get everything handed to them. Women are overqualified, they work overtime, they do all this extra stuff, and they barely even make it to the promotion. And then they have to hear shit like, she fucked her way to the top, she sucked her way to the top, she slept her way up to that position. Well, first of all, why was that even an option? If that did happen, why were there men withholding promotions for sex? That's quid pro quo. That's sexual. That's rape. That's rape. You're basically telling someone, yeah, I'll get you ahead in business, but I got to get something out of it. And he gets off without any consequences, and you blame the woman for taking that deal instead of saying it shouldn't have been offered to her in the first place. But I digress. Um, it's just insanity, and it just it makes me hate people so much, because there are so many people who don't ever take a moment to stop and reflect and think about this shit because they're so adamant about being right, and it is rooted in misogyny. Women are not treated right. Women are not treated fairly. Um, and you hear these ugly things. I mean, look at what just happened in the election. Look at what the message that this sends. All the young girls out there who could have been inspired by the idea of a female president are now just getting one of many reminders that men can get twice as much for half the work. Donald Trump repeatedly did horrible and inexcusable things. And no, you can't just say it's an agenda against him. There's no valid reason to dislike him. The liberal left-wing media, just the radical leftists, they have an agenda to make him look bad, and they lie about him all the time. I hate him because I listen to the words he says. I listen to what comes out of his own mouth. I look at him, and I look at his behavior, his mannerisms, everything the guy does and says, and I decide this is not a good person. And absolutely every horrible thing he's been accused of, I could picture him doing. It doesn't surprise me at all. And I have a good track record with that. I'm very, very good at figuring out what people are and are not capable of based on my first impressions of them. For example, P. Diddy didn't surprise me at all. A lot of these celebrities who've been accused of horrible things did not surprise me at all. But there are some celebrities that did surprise me, and they turned out to be innocent. I have a perfect track record with this shit, so don't fuck with me. Donald Trump 100% raped dozens of women. That would not surprise me even a little bit. He definitely committed a lot of financial crimes. I wouldn't even be surprised if he arranged for someone to get killed, or killed someone to keep quiet. He's not above murder. He isn't above rigging an election in his favor. He isn't above anything. He'll do whatever he wants. And I promise you, mark my words, one day it will be known. One day it will be beyond any doubt. He will be proven to be a criminal. In fact, I don't want him to die until that happens. I want him to get his karma. But his karma, even though I think it will end in death, it's going to be a big, slow burn. He is going to have to face all of the shit that he did. He's going to have to own up to it and actually stand in the truth of all the horrible things he's done. And I want to be there for that. I want to see that. So, if I had magic and I could cast a whole spell on the world and make everybody do something, what would I do? I would curse You know the movie Liar Liar with Jim Carrey? I'd put that curse on everybody. Make it impossible for everyone to lie. And just wait. Just wait. Suddenly, there would be no such thing as cheating on your spouse. There would be no such thing as rigging an election. There would be no such thing as dishonesty anymore. And I would just leave it there because I have nothing to hide. I wouldn't even notice the curse. It would make no difference to me. And if by some chance I ever did have to be stopped from lying, I would say, hey, I needed that humbling because why should I get to lie when everyone else has to tell the truth? I would love to live in that world where no one has the ability to lie. But in the meantime, I have the ability to sniff out bullshit. Energy doesn't lie, people lie. And if you learn how to read the energy of a situation, that's how you get as good as I am at, you know, telling the difference between fact and fiction, bullshit and truth. So, let's see. I got a little bit off track. Let me try and remember where I was. Election, Donald Trump, misogyny, abortion. Yes, okay. So we were talking about how being against abortion is, I think, inherently misogynistic. Because imagine if it was possible for men to get pregnant, they'd be handing out abortion pills with erectile dysfunction medication. You know, it wouldn't even be a question because men do not feel that it is their responsibility to put their body through irreversible changes just, to avoid killing a potential life. No. Men would not feel that that was their responsibility. Suddenly, they'd be real concerned about the damage their dick was going to take when it popped it out. They'd be real concerned about all the changes that were going to happen to their hormones and their insides. They'd be freaking out. And if it was their responsibility to take care of the kid completely, they had to breastfeed and all that, can you even imagine? Can you even imagine? Absolutely not. They would not ever make it known that men had to do that because they would suddenly feel like it was being forced on them. They would suddenly feel like they didn't have much of a choice in the matter, and they'd suddenly have to be real careful about who they slept with, which is a luxury they currently have, to just sleep with anybody they want to sleep with. They don't have to care. They don't have to worry about a condom. There are men who intentionally poke holes in condoms to try and trap women in pregnancies, and those women should be allowed to have abortions because imagine getting trapped into a pregnancy that's going to leave you a permanent connection to someone who would do something so sick. It's not technically rape, but it's a form of rape. It's dishonesty in a sexual context. It's sick. And these stories just get swept away by, oh, that's left-wing propaganda. No, it's not. These are real stories of real things that happen to people. You have no sympathy. You don't care. You don't have any awareness of how the things that you're pushing are hurting other people. So let's look at another issue where people try to demonize the other people. Okay, immigrants, right? Illegal immigrants, they don't deserve any sympathy because they came here illegally and they knew better and they don't belong here. First of all, everybody's here illegally. Nobody should be here. This was not ours to take in the first place. Second of all, most illegal immigrants came here because they were running away from something else, something worse. And we also make it really hard to get into the country in the first place. Most of them are also not stealing your jobs, and you are likely not going to be affected by the presence of immigrants at all. They're not eating your dogs. They're not eating your cats. This is all bullshit. People make this shit up, and they do it because they're racist, they're xenophobic. I don't know what else to say. They don't like people who look different than them, people who act different than them, people who talk different than them. They like people who are the same as them. They like their fellow religious cult members, their Trump cult members, and anybody who's different they see as the threat, the enemy. I have never heard someone talk about immigrants and felt good about that. Every time I hear someone say "Ugh, immigrants, I get a sick feeling in my gut because something in my body is telling me that that's not right. You look at someone and you need to mind your fucking business. You need to mind your fucking business. You don't know who that person is. You don't know what their story is. You know nothing about them other than their skin color and the way they talk. And that's enough for you to say, "Are you here legally? How dare you? You should be ashamed of yourself." I have a friend with slightly darker skin, not even that big noticeable, but he already in the last couple days had someone tell him, "All right, time to go back to time to leave the country," you know, because he didn't look like he was born there. What what the fuck? Like, I hope something horrible happens to these people because it just I cannot imagine saying that to another human being, having absolutely no sympathy. And what pisses me off the most is that these people try to play the victim. They do. They say that, by the way, before I leave, the biggest issue, the immigration, abortion, and trans people, those are, in my opinion, those are the people who are going to get hit the hardest by what he's going to do. But to be fair, everybody's going to get hit by what he's going to do because he doesn't have any fucking plans other than making himself richer at everybody else's expense. And that's already starting to become obvious to some people, which is like kind of hilarious. But trans people, you don't need to believe that it's possible to change your sex. You don't need to believe in, the idea that gender is just a concept. All you need to know, and this is true for immigration and even the abortion thing, all you need to know is that you're looking at a human being with valid thoughts and emotions and concerns and fears, just like homeless people too. And the bottom line is, it's not your business. You're not supposed to assume this many things about people when you meet them. You don't look at the homeless person and assume that they have some bullshit story, that it's their fault and that it was brought upon. You don't look at them and say, "Oh, disgusting." You look at them and you open your mind and you open your heart and you say, "Hey, who are you? It's nice to meet you." And you take what they give you. And then if they spew hateful rhetoric back at you, then you can have your opinion of them because they've shown you who they are. But you can think things about people knowing nothing about them, knowing nothing about their opinions, knowing nothing about what they think, knowing nothing about how they treat people, knowing just that they're homeless or that they look like they might be an immigrant or that, they're trans or that they're a woman. And you start thinking things about them. You really think that's something that a mature adult with integrity should do? What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? Oh my God. Absolutely disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Um, I don't need to know anything about a trans person's business. I don't need to know why they look that way. You know why? Because their cosmetic procedures, just like anyone else's, are not my business. I don't need to know why that woman had plastic surgery. I don't need to know, why someone got a sex change operation. I don't need to know why someone shaved their head or has a weird haircut. I don't need to know why someone's fat or why they're walking funny or why their hands look like, they might have some kind of mental condition. I don't need to know. All I need to know is what they're willing to bring to the table, what they're willing to offer, you know? And if they're going to be rude to me and treat me like I don't exist, um, then that's all I need to know about them. And when it comes to disabilities too, I think it's also important that we acknowledge neurodivergence and, physical disabilities because sometimes you might think someone's making a rude gesture. It's completely unconscious on their part. You might think someone is ignoring you or being rude by not looking you in the eyes. And there could be completely unrelated reasons why they're doing that. Maybe it's overwhelming for them to look in your eyes. You don't ever know what someone's going through. So give people the benefit of the doubt too. But sometimes people can't have the benefit of the doubt. People walk up to you and they start saying hateful shit. there's no mental illness that can justify that. If they fuck you over, you know, they agreed to be somewhere at a certain time and they repeatedly are late and they're completely unreliable, that's not a good friend. You know, there's no mental illness that justifies that. You, as a human being functioning in society, have a responsibility to be ethical and careful about how your actions affect others. And if you have no regard for how your actions affect others and you don't clean up your own mess, because it's not, if you have a condition that means you're always late, that's not that person's fault. That's your mess to clean up. You figure that out for yourself, and you can't just say, well, you should just expect me to be late. Okay, well then that, but I still need to plan around this. You're still throwing my day off. I still need to plan around you being late. So what does that mean? When I expect you there at 5:30, I got to tell you there to be there at 4:30? You know, like, is that what that means? Why is that okay? Why is that on me? So that's the thing. There are people who want you to feel responsible for their mess. And this is leading back to the Trump supporters. A lot of these people leave wreckage in their path. Like Dumb and Dumber, when he's going, oh, there's a lot of bad drivers out there in the opening scene, and meanwhile in his rearview mirror there's explosions and shit because he's not even looking at the road. Like, I have seen a lot of Trump supporters complain on their public posts on social media saying, hey, how come I'm losing friends over this? How come people can't be respectful? Man, the liberals are so hateful. They're so mean. They're saying horrible things to me. And all I did was vote for someone who's gonna ruin their lives. I mean, I don't know. It's like it's insane. Completely fucking insane. Um it's like driving into someone with your car and then getting out of the car, and then they're like, hey, you just hit me with your car. And they're like, whoa, don't be mad at me. And then you're like, but you just hit me with your car. I could have lost my leg. I'm lucky I'm not bleeding right now. And you're like, well, I didn't really hit you with my car. I mean, you've just been conditioned to believe that. In reality, if that hadn't happened, I might have gotten hit by the car. It's like, you were driving the car. Are you just trying to convince me that what happened didn't happen? It's like, well, I understand that you believe it happened, but the truth is, I didn't really hit you with my car, and you're okay. So the pain you're feeling isn't real. So it's actually kind of funny that you're thinking that you're in that amount of pain. It's pretty goofy and ridiculous. That's what's happening. These people are trying to convince you that your fears and your pain is comical to them because it's so ridiculous. There are zero valid reasons to dislike Donald Trump outside of propaganda. You know, there's an agenda against him, and there's no valid reason to dislike him. If you don't like him, you've been brainwashed. It's not like you actually are paying attention to what he's doing and saying. It's not like you have a good sense of judgment. It's not like you actually have integrity and consistency in your beliefs and values. No, you've just been brainwashed by the woke mind virus. That's the only reason there is to dislike Trump. And you're going to vote for Kamala Harris? She's so unqualified. What has she done in the last 4 years? She hasn't done anything. She's going to get us all killed. She's going to make everything even more expensive and just leave things the way they are. And that's not a good thing. She has no plan. She doesn't know what she's doing. Besides, she's a woman. Men are better leaders. Now, I know you might not resonate with that, but unfortunately, a lot of the other people who voted for the same person you did actually think that. There are a lot of people who voted for her because of the color of her skin and because of her body parts. There are a lot of people. That was a deterrent for them. And you can say, well, that wasn't a deterrent for me. That's not why I didn't vote for her. That's fine. Maybe it doesn't apply to you. Maybe you had other reasons not to vote for her. But I think the reason that there was such a strong, hateful rhetoric against her in the first place, looking for other reasons to justify not liking her, I think it all started with the fact that people don't want a woman president. So, yeah, over 74 million people voted for Donald Trump. 74 million people voted for this guy. That is embarrassing. They voted for this orange criminal who's bragged about how his celebrity status means he can sexually assault women. He's owned that those words came out of his mouth. He literally said, I can sexually assault women because I'm a star. And isn't that funny? And he said, okay, sorry. What do you mean, sorry? You can't say something like that. Not because it's wrong to say, but because of what it says about the way you think, what it says about the way you view women, what it says about your sense of humor, that you're sick. And there are a lot of men who said, oh, all of us talk like that. Well, that's terrifying. I did not want to know that. And that's not normal. Like, holy fucking shit. It's really, really disappointing that this even needs to be said. But that was in 2016. That was before he was elected in 2016, and it happened anyway. Go figure that one out. People were okay with that. Jesus Christ. And the list just keeps getting bigger. All the shit he's done. Huge list of horrible, horrible things he did. You want to talk about someone who hasn't done anything? What the fuck did Donald Trump do in his first term? Can you even list the good things that he actually did without just taking his word for it? Can you actually go through and connect good things that happened in those 4 years to him being president that cannot be credited to Obama or just luck? Can you actually do that? I don't think you can, because he didn't do jack shit. What I remember in those 4 years is every day there was a news story about something that he almost caused a war or made some ridiculous decision. I remember waking up one day and seeing that he just randomly decided that he wasn't going to let transgender people in the military anymore. And I thought, what the fuck is the point of that? What the fuck? Why? Why? But, you know, but that's the way his brain works. And never mind what he did in his first presidency. What does he plan to do in this presidency? He was asked in 2016 if he had a plan to replace Obamacare. And he said yes. He had 4 years and he didn't do it. Now, the debate, couple weeks ago or a month ago, I don't even know when it was, he was asked the same question, do you have a plan to replace Obamacare? He said, well, after 8 years, I have concepts of a plan. Concepts of a plan. If you read his website, he has only 20 promises of what he's going to do in his term. Some of them are redundant. Some of them have no elaboration. And some of them are just insanely stupid and pointless. He wasted an entire slot talking about how he's going to deport people who are pro-Palestine. Deport. Like the same way he's going to do to immigrants. You're not going to be allowed to have an opinion on a genocide. He wasted an entire slot talking about education on LGBT people in schools. You're not going to be allowed to teach children that gay people exist anymore. What else did he do? Abortion. I mean, these are, these are slots that he wasted talking about this shit. You talk about someone who doesn't have a plan. Harris had a plan, and she talked about it at every rally. She went on and on about the people and caring about the country and all the things she was going to do and how she was going to do it. What does he do? He dances. He brings on racist comedians calling Puerto Rico an island of garbage. He just says crazy shit. He says he has a better beach body than Joe Biden. He doesn't talk about his plans or what he wants to do. He spews hateful rhetoric against immigrants and trans people and women, and then claims that he loves women only when this is the thing. He claims to love women only in the context of bringing down trans women. He claims to love babies only in the context of bringing down women who want to have abortions. He claims to love Americans only in the context of shaming people who he doesn't see as American. He doesn't love Americans. He loves himself, and he loves his rich buddies. And he and his rich buddies, they're going to benefit from this election, and that's why Elon Musk helped him. That's why he helped him steal the election. I hope they're behind bars. I want to see Elon Musk. I want to see Donald Trump go to court and get convicted and spend the rest of their lives in jail. And I hope something kills them on the way. I don't even want them to go to jail. I hope that they get their karma and that some freak accident kills them. I want to see Donald Trump. I want to see this headline. Donald Trump shits himself to death on the toilet. Found on toilet after bout of bad diarrhea. I want to see something where Elon Musk is run over by one of his own cars. I want some poetic justice. I want some shit that's actually gonna feel like truly karma was delivered. And I don't know what it's gonna look like. But what I do know is that it's happening, and I'm gonna stick around and watch it play out in real time. This is gonna be interesting. So yeah, it says somebody's watching. If that's true, if there's actually somebody tuned in, drop a comment, let me know you're actually here, because I don't know if I can trust what YouTube says sometimes. But I'm gonna head out soon because I've been live for longer than I planned on being. Uh-oh. This is a lot of random hatred for 2 a.m. What did he say? Well, this is a lot of hatred for a random 2 a.m. Well, I didn't expect anybody to tune in, and you jumped in the middle of something. Something led up to that. I'm sorry. It wasn't a comment. No one was here. Someone was here in the first 50 minutes, but it's 71 minutes in now, so yeah, I was going on a rant. I hate how you always jump in right when I'm going on a passionate, angry rant. I just got the notification now. Damn, YouTube, get it together. What the shit? You just got the 71 minutes and it just notified you? That's unexcused. That's insane. Come on. I didn't know I would have been here. Oh, you would have been here the whole time? Well, I didn't think you'd be awake. Although I guess I should have known. You and I both stay up all hours of the night. Oh, man. Yeah, I assumed you were randomly starting just now. Nope. It's late night philosophy. My plan was to break down my complete philosophy about how things work and what's going on. But what I did instead was I just got really sidetracked and talked about a lot of random shit. And it became a lot more political than I had planned. I'll be right back. I'm gonna grab a drink because I might stick around for a little bit longer now that I have an audience member. All right. Yeah, I'm fueled by the night times. I'm a dark Leo that way. This is a solid and supportive audience you've got going. 100%. I like them. What time is it? 2:36? Damn it. Well, I guess it's not that bad. I've been staying up a little later than this. Just watching all the Marvel movies. The last one I saw was Spider-Man Homecoming. I finished that one earlier today. Or I guess technically yesterday since we're past midnight. I made Ivy Rivera a brand new YouTube channel for her show Late Night Circus. Late Night Circus is like a news show. And what I like about it is that it is tough these days to find unbiased news. So many news people they either have personal biases or they've been bought and paid for by people who are biased and they're paid for to send certain messages and stuff. But Ivy got her degree in journalism, and she loves keeping up with current events. And she started a series on her other channel called Late Night Circus for that purpose. She spends about an hour and a half, 2 hours, um, discussing just current events, certain headlines, and going over all of it. And then also sharing her perspective on, just what it means just from like a spiritual standpoint, sometimes anyway. But what I like about that is that she talks about the stuff that you don't usually hear other people talking about. When I first started watching Late Night Circus, she started it almost a year ago. I remember thinking, wow, I did not know about this story. There were a lot of things where I was like, Jesus, I'm really glad I'm listening to this because I did not know about this. And it's nice to have a source of information where you can learn about all this stuff going on. But it was affecting her YouTube channel pretty badly. Every time she did it, it would mess up her algorithm, and she would start noticing views disappearing, subscribers disappearing. So in order to prevent that from happening further, she stopped doing the show, but she decided she wanted to bring it back, and she said, I'm going to make a separate channel just for this show. That way it doesn't affect my other channel in any way. And I said, that's a great idea. So I helped her do it. I did it for her. I went over and all she really had to do was like confirm the phone number, text, and everything. But I created the YouTube channel. I even uploaded her previous 5 episodes. I got everything up and running. And that's what I was doing in the last couple hours. So I also got her to agree to do a live stream with me, and we're going to talk about conspiracy theories, sort of like an interview, I guess. So that'll be fun. Let me catch up on comments. Up all night watching the Marvel movies all alone. Doesn't call and invite a meta. Perplexing. Well, look, if you ever want to come over, you can just ask, I'm not guaranteed to say yes, but, I am guaranteed to say no if you don't even ask. So you have nothing to lose by asking. I was watching a movie, a Blig, B-L-I-G, what? Recommended that seemingly is just porn, was oddly unexpected. The majority of our news has meshed way too far with opinion programming. Yes, 100%. And what I like about her more than anything else is just that she is just sharing truth, and it's truth that is often buried a little bit. These are the headlines that a lot of people are going to want to bury and not talk about. That's what makes the show stand out to me. So I'm happy to help her share this content in a way that won't mess up her algorithm on her other channel. Like what I think happened to me, because I talk about a lot of the same shit on this channel. And look at me, I can't even get people notified that I'm live until 70 minutes in. It did not used to be like that when this channel started, when it was a blank slate. I was getting more views initially, people were coming in, but I made enough videos talking about controversial stuff. I swear to God, YouTube has stuff in their algorithm that there's like certain keywords that they don't want you to say, and it messes it up. They stop promoting your videos. They stop putting them in suggestions. They stop notifying your subscribers. They start shadow banning likes and comments and views. It's crazy. Along with the poor quality of American education, it ends up informing people of very basic facts and telling them how to feel about the rest, not explaining the system or how it affects people. Yeah. Speaking of conspiracy theories. Oh, man. Yeah. Well, the reason we picked that topic, Ivy said, what do you want to talk about? I said, well, I don't know. We have a lot of options. Let me think about it. So I went over to my channel, I scrolled through my videos, and I noticed the one that had the most views on my Fallen World live streams was the one called Conspiracy Theories. That was literally the title, Conspiracy Theories. It had over 2,000 views. And I thought, maybe that's a topic people like, you know? So maybe it's time to bring that back. And I should talk about conspiracy theories again, because there are some interesting ones. And I think what's important to talk about is that conspiracy theories on the right have become so normal. It's just the entire right-wing mentality is in and of itself one giant conspiracy theory, because now even suggesting that Donald Trump is any of the things he obviously is, they think that that's a conspiracy against him. Everyone who thinks Donald Trump is a criminal or a liar, um, they all believe that that is just a giant conspiracy against him. So right-wingers are conspiracy theorists, and excuse me, what I find interesting is how some conspiracy theories are true, or at least have truth in them, but they get blown out of proportion and people take them and run with it. So I think it's important to have a distinction between a conspiracy theory that has some, there's some reason to believe in it, versus a conspiracy theory that's like, what is even gained by proving this? I think Flat Earth is the best example of that. That's the easiest conspiracy theory to use, where it's like, genuinely, what are you hoping to accomplish by proving this point? Nothing. The idea that celebrities are satanic. What do you have to gain by proving that? Their words are still true, you know? How come you only hear celebrities called satanic in the context of them having a leftist opinion? Hmm? How come they go on and they say something that's leftist, and then all of a sudden they're Satanists, and then you start finding all this evidence, and you're like, they do this, and they do, you know, you start looking for stuff, and you're like, they're Satanists because they had a leftist opinion. It starts with that, and then they go looking for the justification. They go looking for the excuse to call them Satanists. So what I'm wondering is, if you were able to prove this, what would you do? Would you say, see, it is evil to be a leftist? That's what you would do. Don't pretend otherwise. You wouldn't say, put them behind bars. Because what happened when Diddy got exposed? Did people say, oh my God, that's so creepy. What a disgusting person. I wonder how many more there are. No, what they instead said was, see, all celebrities are like this, and all celebrities are leftists because leftism is evil. That's the way people react to shit like this. It's insane, it's unhinged, and we need to actually lay this shit out and put some logic to it. So, yeah, I'm gonna go through and probably list some of the more popular conspiracy theories and interview Ivy about them. And I might just add some questions of my own, um, of just things that I would like to get her opinion on. Because I think it could be interesting, and I think, you know, we might attract an audience of people who would also find it interesting. Why talk about conspiracy theories, dear Lucci? Of course it is. People search and watch those like crack instead of reality. The Earth is 3/4 water. That water is not carbonated. Therefore, the Earth is indeed flat. This is not flat, luckily. There's bubbles in that shit. Oh, man. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. In terms of philosophy, do you have anything that I could discuss before I end the live stream? Do you have any questions or any I'm trying to think of the word. Do you have a hypothesis? Do you have, like, you know, a theory or something? Do you have a philosophical idea that you would like to discuss with me? A topic you want to bring up? you know, something that you believe about how something works, or something that you want to explore about how something works, and I could share my thoughts on it. Can I make a request? Please interview Ivy about the history of Project Stargate. Ooh, absolutely. Project Stargate. Does Stargate have something to do with Elon Musk? Because I feel like I was just talking about that with someone, but I forgot the name of it. There was something with election conspiracies and Elon Musk that someone was telling me about, and I could have sworn that that's what it was, but I'm not 100% sure. Project Gateway. I don't know what that is. No, LOL. I'd invite you over if it wasn't almost 3 in the morning, but I don't want to be staying up too late. I'd invite you over if I thought maybe we could watch a Marvel movie. If it was like 3 hours earlier, I probably would. Schrodinger cat and superposition keeps me up at night. What do you think? Okay, well, I don't know what superposition is, and I did look into Schrodinger's cat, but I already forgot what I learned. I think I looked it up and I read what it meant like a few months ago, so I haven't thought about it in a while. But refresh my memory, and I'll oh God, I'll share my thoughts. I just tried to type it out and it's complicated and I keep running out of damn YouTube comment characters. That's okay. You can tell me what it is in bits and pieces. You can tell me in parts. YouTube needs better filters. Yeah. Okay. So there's this cat. It's in a box. Okay, so we got a cat in a box. If my goal is to not stay up super late, I probably shouldn't be drinking Pepsi, but oh well. Sealed box. Okay, we got a cat in a box that's sealed. Inside the box is a poison canister that could hurt at any time. Yep, that's exactly what was just said. Okay, I had to reread that. Burst. Okay. That makes more sense. I was like, all right, I'll humor this. Go on. Should have anticipated the burping. Whew, Jesus. Carbonated water, high fructose corn syrup, caramel color, sugar, some kind of acid, caffeine. That's not a good thing for this hour. Citric acid, natural flavor, caffeine content, 24 mg. It's pretty simple ingredients. So in the near future, before you open the box, reality says the cat is both alive and dead. Well, I guess a definitive reality is not ascertained until you open the box. Okay. Before that time, both are possible. Well, it's sort of like, everything in life, you know? You don't know what you're gonna see until you see it. I don't know, I'm in the basement right now. I don't know that I'm not gonna go upstairs and find that my whole family's dead. Because a killer snuck into the house real quiet and killed them in their sleep. And they didn't make any noise. I mean, who knows? So, yeah, like, I don't know until I do it. Reminds me of that idea where it's like, people say if a tree fell in the forest but no one heard it and it didn't have any kind of ripple effect on the rest of the world, did it really happen? And it's like, well, yeah, it did happen, and it did have a ripple effect on the rest of the world because everything that happens affects other things. Only things that don't happen don't affect anything, but there's no such thing as something that doesn't happen. Everything happens somewhere, sometime. It's a way of considering that phenomenon that our tests seem to prove on a quantum level for years, now that we can explain. We can run a test 1 billion times with the same result if we don't look at it. As soon as we look at it, the result changes. I mean, if it could explode at any time, that suggests an element of randomness, doesn't it? Didn't we just have a whole discussion about how there's no such thing as randomness? I mean, you were basically explaining the concept of determinism versus free will, but it started with talking about randomness. Proven over and over again on the quantum scale, it doesn't make sense and seems to tell us that perhaps reality is defined by consciousness. Well, that is something that's a road I'm happy to go down. I do think that consciousness is the only window that we have into reality. It's almost like randomness exists theoretically. The problem we were discussing is that we cannot replicate randomness. Right. What I think is that consciousness sort of exists in a universe of its own, and the world that we see around us, without someone or something to experience it, it might as well not even exist. The only proof of existence is that we're experiencing it. And when I say we, I mean the conscious, not just humans, but anything that's conscious has to experience existence in order for existence to be real. Otherwise, there is no proof of it, so it might as well not even be real. But everywhere, there's something experiencing something. Um, there's consciousness all over the place. And even the things that you think no one is experiencing, it does have a ripple effect. That tree that fell in the forest when no one was around, that isn't going to go without consequence. That will cause a butterfly effect, a chain of events that will eventually reach a conscious person and make a difference. Everything that happens for the conscious, in my opinion. It's called the double slit experiment. Absolutely should get Ivy with that one too. What is the double slit experiment exactly? Hey, listen, if you want to be involved, all you have to do is join and leave these types of comments when I go live with Ivy, because I would be happy to take these questions and ask them to Ivy if you would be happy to show up with them. So, you know, I think that would be great. That way, um, that way we don't forget, because I might not remember to ask her some of this stuff. But if you're there and you're watching, you can comment and remind me. We just have to pick a time. It's probably going to be in the evening, because Ivy's a night owl too. She's probably still awake right now. The double slit experiment is the one that we keep scientifically showing that quantum measurements change depending on if we look at them or not. So the double slit experiment is Schrodinger's cat? Is it the same thing? One philosophical concept I've always found interesting is the bootstrap paradox. And it comes from the really stupid saying, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That's not possible. You can't pull yourself up by your bootstraps. It's an impossible thing to ask of someone. And the bootstrap paradox is sort of like, you know, in a time travel movie, if there was an episode of a show where a character, her future self, traveled back in time, and you're like, oh my god, it's the old version of my high school friend, and she was wearing this hat, and later she ran into her younger version of herself, and she gave her the hat, and then she was like, oh, thanks, I love this hat, and then that ended up becoming the same hat that she had when she was older. So what happened with this hat was that it was given to her by her future self, and then when she got older, she gave it to her past self. So where did the hat actually come from? It has no point of origin. The hat is in an infinite loop, being given by a future self and to a past self over and over and over again. But the hat has no point of origin. Where did it come from originally? Why does it exist? Why does it look like that? Why is it a hat? How is this possible? It makes no sense. And yet we can witness it happening. We can watch it, we can look at it, and in the moment it does make sense. It just makes no logical sense, because I don't think our brains are designed to understand how completely chaotic and insane the universe really is. We think that things need to make sense because we experience time and space in a certain way. But in reality, it's all just kind of an illusion. So when something like that happens, we're met with that reality. Think about dream logic. When you go to sleep and you have a wacky ass dream and nothing makes any sense, when it's happening, it feels so real and you're really experiencing it and it does make sense. But then you wake up and you're like, I don't know, that doesn't actually make sense. I don't know. Um, it's just a different form of being conscious. Decades later, scientists performed the double-slit experiment that appears to highlight the Schrodinger's cat question. Right, there's a classic paradox referred to as the grandfather paradox. Mm-hmm. There goes my thing. It's 3 in the morning. I'm probably gonna head out. But, this was fun, interesting, and if you're still gonna be awake, feel free to rewind and start this from the beginning, because I said a lot of interesting shit before you joined, too, I think. So you're, 71 minutes behind. But, yeah, I gotta go to bed. I don't wanna keep, waking up real late in the afternoon. I've been waking up at, like, 2 PM, and then I miss so much of the day. Probably a good idea. Go watch another Marvel movie since you're all caffeinated. I'm probably just gonna go to bed and scroll through my phone until I'm tired enough to try and fall asleep, and then I'm gonna do that. So, if I put on another Marvel movie, that's gonna keep me awake till at least 5:30. Um, okay. Excuse me. um, have a good night or whatever time of day it is for whoever's watching this, and thank you for making it to the end. I will see you next time I go live. And I don't know which channel I'm going to bring Ivy onto yet. Probably my main channel, because it's got more subscribers. Um, so make sure you have your notifications on. I will definitely schedule the live stream and make sure it's known what time I'm going to go live with her. And that'll be fun. So see you then. And thank you for watching.